You probably hear all the time that gear doesn't matter, which that's kinda true. But no one can deny the fact that gear does play a big role in your photos and videos, and how it can change them completely. Now after watching this video, you'll have a clear idea of which lens is the right one for you. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Number 7. Canon EF 135mm f2L USM. Canon's incredible EF 135mm f2L USM is the lens that most Nikon shooters switch to when considering Canon. Any photographer on ShotKit who owns this lens will tell you that it is undoubtedly one of the best portrait lenses ever made. Despite having a 135mm lens, Nikon simply cannot compete with this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the Canon EF 135mm f2L USM hasn't been updated since 1996. The Canon EF 135mm f2L USM is an excellent lens in terms of optics. Like all L series lenses, the colors and contrasts are superb, and when shooting with the aperture wide open, the bokeh effect causes the background to dissolve into a creamy swirl of color. Number 6. Canon EF 2470mm f2.8 L2. It's time to pull out the big guns. The Canon EF 2470mm f2.8 L2 is without a doubt the best all-purpose Canon zoom lens money can buy. No more fumbling around with outdated or early models. This second iteration of this incredibly popular lens is far superior to the first. It's definitely justified, even though the cost is almost double. Both amateur and professional Canon DSLR camera owners around the world favor the Canon EF 2470mm f2.8 L2, one of the creator's most well-liked professional lenses ever. The Canon EF 2470mm f2.8 L2 is far superior to the f4 version, which is also available. Furthermore, it has even sharper focus than the Nikon equivalent. Number 5. Canon EF 85mm f1.8 USM. Owners of the Canon f1.2 will probably stop reading at this point. I'm fully aware of that. They might even spit on the screen. There's even an f1.4 version of this 85mm, but I continue to favor the modest f1.8 version. First, let's address the major issue. Why, oh why, wouldn't I suggest the Canon 85mm f1.2 L2, which is regarded as one of the best portrait lenses ever made? Only one word: slow. And if you needed 3 more: huge, heavy, and expensive. It's acceptable if you spend the entire day photographing models in a studio. Perhaps you don't require a lightweight lens with a quick autofocus. To all the wedding photographers who insist on using the Canon 85mm f1.2L lens in low light during the reception, I'll wager that at least half of your shots will be missed. Now, let's talk about the Canon EF 85mm f1.8 USM. What makes this obscure lens such an amazing deal? For just under $350, you can get a ridiculously good portrait lens with unmatched sharpness for less than half of the cost of the Nikon equivalent. Damn you, Canon! Number 4. Canon 35mm f1.4L. Nowadays, it's common knowledge that newer technology is always better, despite never having used it before. I'm aware of many photographers who will run out and purchase the newest model of a camera or lens. When Canon released version 2 of the best Canon lenses for wedding photography, that is what happened. Canon 35mm f1.4L is the company is hugely popular. When people realize their error, they turn back to the tried and true earlier versions with their tails between their legs. Please understand that I think the Canon 35mm f1.4 L2 is a fantastic lens. Wide open, the quality is superior to the original, but you won't really be able to tell the difference unless you side-by-side compare photos taken with both lenses. Aside from the fact that DxO Mark named the 7 the sharpest Canon lens and the slight advantage when shooting at f1.4, I still advise you to save money and choose the original version. Better doesn't always equate to newer. Expensive doesn't either. I won't go into detail about why this 1998 lens is actually superior to the 2015 one here, because there are many websites that do so. What I will say though is that you may still be able to find a Canon 35mm f1.4L for a deal if you're fortunate. If you think $1,200 isn't a good deal, try comparing it to the Nikon model. The Canon 35mm f1.4L is over $400 less expensive. Number 3. Canon EF 24-105mm f4L IS USM. That's right, I advise using the older Canon E4 24-105mm f4L IS USM rather than the more recent version 2 of this lens. This one is 100 grams lighter, smaller, and more affordable than its predecessor. I would always choose the older version, even though the new one has better image stabilization. This lens's benefit is its incredibly practical focal range, which elevates it to the top spot among all Canon lenses. It's also one of the most popular aftermarket lenses for Canon. Nikon doesn't provide the 24-105mm focal length range either. Although Sigma made an effort to close the gap, its product is inferior to this Canon model. The Canon EF 24-105mm f4L IS USM is the company's highest performance mid-range zoom, and even at f4 it merits a spot on this list. Because even with excellent image stabilization, f4 just isn't going to cut it for professionals who need lenses to function in nearly pitch black conditions. However, for the rest of us, f4 is perfectly fine. Don't even bother to ask what a USM lens is. This marketing lingo from Canon means relatively silent lens. Number 2. Canon EF 40mm f2.8 STM. This is a wonderful lens, and the absence of a Nikon equivalent makes me jealous. It's without a doubt a fantastic travel lens, and if you don't need a zoom, I'd even rank it as Canon's best travel lens. The Canon EF 40mm f2.8 STM appears to be an oversized lens cap at less than an inch tall. This is the very reason why the lens is referred to as a pancake lens. With only 0.29 pounds, attaching it to the front of your Canon DSLR will make you happy. With just your camera body, you won't feel any weight difference at all. Despite its small size, the Canon EF 40mm f2.8 STM has remarkable optics that produce astounding sharpness from edge to edge, even when shot wide open. Number 1. Canon EF 50mm f1.8 STM. This nifty 50 from Canon is the first on the list. Warning, I'm not going to recommend the other 50mm lens that almost every Canon shooter on ShotKit owns, i.e. the Canon 50mm f1.2L. While the f1.2L is a fantastic lens, it's a little too specialized for this roundup. Although f1.2 can be useful, the depth of field is simply too small for the majority of applications. I apologize, Canon wedding photographers. The fact that this lens focuses faster and has an additional 2 diaphragm blades results in a smoother background blur when compared to the now discontinued 50mm f1.82 version. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about what makes the Canon EF 50mm f1.8 STM deserving of a spot here, and why it has over 600 positive reviews on Amazon and is Canon's best-selling lens. The cost is the main justification, the value for the money more precisely. The Canon EF 50mm f1.8 STM is an example of a cheap Canon lens that is also awesome, offering superb image quality while being the most affordable Canon EF lens ever produced. Now, I believe that after watching this video, you might also want to check out this video here, so I'll see you over there. Bye!